which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for your 30 years of service.
Yes.
Madam, you'll come to the podium here.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we come humbly before you, Father. To first of all, just say thank you for who you are. Father, you're worthy to be praised, and so we honor you today, God. Holy Spirit of God, we invite you to come in. We ask for your direction. Lord, we ask for your guidance. Father, we thank you for your protection. We praise you, Father, that you have allowed us to wake up and move around in the world you created. So we honor you today, Father. And Father, I ask in the name of Jesus that you touch, heal, and deliver. Father, sanctify your people that we can live a consecrated life unto you. Lord, we seek you in all of our ways. We acknowledge you. And we ask you today, direct our paths. Forgive us for our sins, for they are many. And Lord, draw us back closer to you. Give us a heart to mind, to love and to serve the people. Lord, that we may serve you in honesty and in truth. And we thank you for it in the name of Jesus. Amen and amen.
Amen. Our city council presentation. Mayor, who's our designee for today?
So for the end of the year month, it rotates back to me. But since I get to speak at the end, I figure I'll pass and let us keep moving and save comments for the end of the meeting.
All right, thank you, sir. Presentation today, Arts Tech Teens in Transition Program, Mr. Juan Tab. Excuse me, down, I'm so spread out here.
No, you're fine. I can move.
No, you're fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Juan Tab. I'm with Arts Tech. I'm the executive director.
Do use that mic because they're picking you up on Facebook
Gotcha.
Live. Thank you.
My name's Juan Tab. I am the executive director of Arts Tech here in Kansas City. So today we're going to present to you Teens in Transition. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Arts Tech. Arts Tech has been with Kansas City for over 20 years. Our organization's vision is empowerment, youth empowerment. And so we work with youth from all different corners of Kansas City throughout the urban core. And so our beliefs are if a youth is with us, a young person is with us, they're not out there. Because we know what happens out there. There's no good out there for youth if they're not engaged, for youth if they don't have anything to grasp onto. And the thing about Arts Tech is we're constant. The founder and former executive director, David Sullivan's been there forever. And I just took over for David in July. And so he and I talked about this program and bringing it back to the city. And so Teens in Transition, it's evidence-based. Evidence-based means it is tried and true. That means it has the numbers, it's effective. It's been tested. It's been tested by multiple entities. And so the purpose is we initiate programming with youth 14 to 17 years of age. The opportunity is to acquire life skills, job readiness, and also training through the use of expressive arts. So arts is the vehicle that we use, and the youth are the engine. They make it go. And so the program, it's steeped in conflict resolution, interaction with positive, caring adults, especially the Kansas City Police and other law enforcement officers. TNT will use creative and innovative strategies to build a positive relationship amongst teens. We all know that when you're interacting with friends, you can't just act up when everybody else is in line, because then everybody else is looking at you like, what's wrong with this dude? And so we know that interaction with peers, but also program staff, makes for youth to be more productive in our communities. And so this program, Arts Tech, we're as strong as our partnerships. We're partnered with Combat, Link, FEC, the family courts, any partner that can help us create a strong foundation to move our youth along. You know, everyone's talking about violence prevention, crime. You know, that's why we're here probably for the most part to speak about those things. And again, if youth are with us, they're not out there. They're in a safe place, a safe environment. They're there with therapists. I'm a therapist. They're there with various, artists. We have artists that work with youth who are right now in the Nelson Atkins Museum, so world-renowned artists. And we also house the American Arts Collective. They're in our building as well. And so this is how Teens in Transition looks. Empowerment, we know that we don't empower individuals, we don't empower people. We put them on the road for them to empower themselves. And that's what TNT is all about. I'm not good with these sayings, but there's one where you teach a person how to fish and they know how to fish for a lifetime. I don't know, I'm not really big on the sayings, but I just thought of that on the run. I thought that was clever. But Teens in Transition, as I said before, it's evidence-based. It's based on a treatment modality called Arts Interactive Education. AIE is proven, but also time limited. So you should see results. 6 to 8 weeks, you ought to see results. You ought to see some behavior modifications within this modality. And so we use various educational components to bridge youth over from some of the at-risk behaviors or some of the at-risk situations that they are in. We bridge them over to safety. We use elements such as, violence reduction. It leads to crime prevention, but also this program, it leads to academic success. We do not want our youth to have adverse experiences with law enforcement. We want our youth to be equipped with the skills to talk through an issue. We know that when we come to a disagreement, there's always two sides. And if either side is dysregulated or heightened, we know that conversation will fail. We need to have two sides thinking clearly, speaking clearly, and that's how we think through and we come up with solutions. That's what this program is steeped in. This is how it looks. It's a partnership. Self-expression and creativity amongst peers leads to emotional regulation, leadership, accountability. And the big piece of this is skill building. A lot of our youth, they come from homes to where it's acceptable to, drugs are acceptable, or they learn from elements that aren't productive, that leads to unproductive elements. The neighborhood, sometimes we are in places where it leads us down the road to where we don't want to be. So empowerment starts with where you live, making improvements where you live, making improvements to yourself, but also lifting others up. And so this is what Teens in Transition is. The program effectiveness, this is the proof in the pudding. And so from 2015 to 2018, 210 teens started with the program, 154 completed the program, yielding a 73% completion rate. Of those who completed the program, two-thirds since have had no or haven't had any negative contact with the police. And so we shouldn't have used a double negative right there, but, a C in English in college. But so the TNT numbers are an indication that proactive evidence-based intervention works. Kansas City Police and the community views this as a huge win. This is also an indication that proactive, not reactive, proactive evidence-based programs work.
As Juan said, I'm Dave Sullivan. I'm the mostly retired former executive director. Myself, along with the architect for Teens in Transition, Mike Toombs, our presentation can't tell you enough about how effective this is. When Mr. Tabb was sharing these numbers with you, the history behind it, there was a Sergeant Gibbs who retired recently from the police department. He went back and he's the one who put these numbers together. He checked to see where were these kids a year, 2 years later. It isn't some numbers that we pulled out of the sky. He went through the database and found these numbers. During the summer, when their kids are with us, they have to check. The police department checks with them, how'd they do over the weekend? Did they have any troubles? I mean, and we let the kids all know this. They all agree to this. But the history, it's the partnerships. It's the mayor's office. It's Chief Smith in the police department and Chief Forte before him. It was Gene Peters Baker. It was a whole lot of folks, and everybody came to work with the young folks. And we have a picture here with Chief Smith. I remember the kids asking him about guns. Did you ever have to shoot? Use your gun. What's it like? And I remember the chief just being very open to them, as well as trying to recruit them into the force. I also remember when Gene Peters Baker came, there was this young man who, he was in a lot of trouble, and we all knew it, but she took him aside and said, listen, you got 1 foot here and you got 1 foot in jail. What do you want to do? Well, frankly, he was too far down in the life that he had chosen, and he went away for 10 years. So we have all kinds of different children who come, and they all are chosen because they have issues. And when we do that, we also have a lot of expectations for the kids. You need to show up. You need to not have any more negative contact with the police. And we can't stress enough the importance of the officers who work with these young folks. We're building commonalities. We all know the history we have with the issues with the police and Mr. Floyd and all that and the protest. But this is one program where the police and the youth and the community come together to find some common ground. They work it out. They work it out with each other. So that when they go back into the community, say there is an incident, now they have a relationship built. And the officers are wonderful about doing that. They're wonderful. And we're really trying to improve that positive relationship building. And it's the only program I know that does that, where the police and the community and all our partners, we have Mothers in Charge, we have Center for Conflict Resolution, we have all kinds of folks come. But it's also the art that is healing and it's expressive. And Mike Toombs, I can never give him enough credit for being the Pied Piper in all this. We've had 2 sites in the past, Arts Tech, and we've also had Hope Hangout. And what I'm also going to try today, I'm pushing and starting to movement is for a 3rd site in the Northeast where all they have these criminal hotspots. Hope Hangout. Many of you might know Marva Moses. One's a wonderful group. She's a Pied Piper out south, and we know all the issues out there with crime and youth. She has her own program with teens in transition. She uses art, but she also took the kids out on field trips. This one is to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. These are things that our kids, you think, are always exposed to. Many of our kids in this group had never been that far north. You know, they live in their own communities and they don't like to get into other people's areas, territories, whatever you want to call them. Marva does a wonderful job about that. You also have Jean Peters Baker. And she comes, and the chief and the mayor, and everybody comes and they talk to the kids. They don't talk at them. They work with them. They talk to them. And they listen. And they get asked some pretty tough questions. And so we really want to express the need, because these kids are not doing well. They don't do well in school. The SROs, the officers, they help identify the kids, family court, and other people working. Hey, the kids who are just about ready to become permanent residents of facilities we don't want them to go to, we're that intervening force. One of the things, it's kind of an odd picture to us, but it has a lot of meaning. A few years ago, these murals that you see in the back, our kids did, and they got extra pay for them because the lyric, those kids in the front, they used them on their national traveling theater show. Our young people did all the artwork, and this other group took it along on the country on the road. At this event, we also had mayors of Kansas City, had mayors from St. Louis, and even a governor showed to see us in action, see the youth. And those murals, the first mural, this one, if I'm not mistaken, I think Chief Smith purchased it and put it in the 27th Street precinct. Teens in Transition is about building that bridge between youth and the officers in the community to find common ground. We appreciate the opportunity to share this with you today. This is still very much a passion of mine. I'm mostly retired. I do a lot of work with my grandchildren, and that's fun, and I dabble and stuff, but this thing I'm going to do forever. I've been doing this for 45 years. I've been at De La Salle. I've been at Arts Tech. This is probably the most iconic program that I've seen, and it's proven effectiveness in all those years. And we've done pretty good work in 45 years, I got to tell you. This is the one, and this is the one I'm going to be stomping for support. And just appreciate the fact that we got to do this in front of you. And as I keep turning it over to him, I keep 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think I'm one of the kids.
Well, before I take a seat, again, Arts Tech is about youth empowerment. We are about helping youth become what their potential and dreams lead them. We don't always get that. Me personally, football was my way, but for others, art may be their way. Technology may be their way. Being a Black male around young Black males, that might be the way. A lot of our youth grow up in homes where they don't have a father. Everybody talks about privilege. I'm privileged because I had both my parents in the house, right? And so not everyone comes from that background. That's why I'm there. I ain't going nowhere. I don't give up on you. I'm one of these, I'm a social worker, so I'm supposed to be soft and all of that, but no, I'm tough. And the thing is, our kids need toughness. They need to be treated like the world treats them. The world is not always a fair place, and Arts Tech is a place to where we teach our youth how to deal with that. It's easy. So the Chiefs game, right? The Raiders are jumping on the Kansas City, emblem, whatever, our logo. It could have, one of our linebackers, Sorensen, he could have ran out there and tackled them, did whatever, but they thought about it. They said, if we go do that, we're going to start the game with a penalty. But we know what happened the first play of the game, and it came from thought. What are our choices? I'm going to stay my butt on this bench and go win this game. That's what they did. But anyhow, we've probably gone over our time. I appreciate the time. I love standing in front of people. I love wearing my suit, but I also love giving information about teens in transition. If you have any questions, please let us know. I have some cards and copies of the presentation for anyone that wants them. I
We
appreciate the
would
time.
definitely love to have,
Yes, sir.
definitely love to have a copy of your PowerPoint. A lot of great information, and you all are doing great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate what you're doing for our city.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. And of course, you know, we have a lot of great things going on. A lot of times we don't get that information, and I'm glad to see the media here as well today to try to put some of this good stuff out that happens through the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association. Is there a presentation from? All right. Good morning.
Ready to go. Well, good morning, Commissioners, Mayor Lucas, Chief, Deputy Chiefs, and everyone who is attending this morning. My name is Jackie Cudahy, and I am the outgoing president of the KCMO Citizen Police Academy Alumni Association. It's a pretty long name. Richard Palmer is also here, who is our incoming president. And what we wanted to talk with you today was really about our organization, kind of what we do, but also a proposal we'd like to just put forward and hopefully get your thoughts and your support on as well. I've spoken to Mayor Lucas very briefly about this when he was kind enough to attend one of our meetings earlier in the year. And I think it'd be great if, if we could see something like this happen. So I want to talk about really having a citizen police academy for city leaders, not just that other individuals go through it. Okay, so these are some of the topics I want to talk about with you. I want to start first with some of the community policing and just where the Citizen Police Academy, kind of where it fits in the bigger picture, and then go into more detail about our academy as well as our alumni association. So I'm sure you all are familiar with the concept of community policing. And really, when you see all of the individuals here, the different groups, and I'm sure there's more that aren't listed here, we all have a responsibility for safety in our community. I think we all have the same goal about we want a safe community. You know, we want to reduce crime. And so the police department can't do it by themselves. Any one of these groups can't do it by themselves. And so we really feel it's just so important for everybody to share that responsibility, work together, actively participate in ways to meet our goal. So these are examples of community policing, and I would say that KCPD really has all of these kinds of things and more that I don't have listed here. But what I do want to focus on today is really about the Citizen Police Academy. There are academies for adults and youth, and then ride-alongs with officers. We feel this is a really great program that we think could be very beneficial for as many people to attend as possible. So the KCPD Citizen Police Academy, it was introduced in 1998, and there's been hundreds of Kansas City residents go through the program. If you talk to anyone who has gone through this, I think you'll probably hear rave reviews. It's a fun, it's an interesting, it's a very eye-opening experience to learn about all of the different areas of the department, but also how we in the community, have our concerns, have a discussion with them. What can we do? What role can we play as well in working in the community with the police department? So some of the things you see here, really, it's an 11-week program. So people really commit some time to this. And I know the police department in general, the officers and everyone who presents there really appreciates everyone's participation and just the willingness to spend their time learning about this. It's not just a lecture series. There's a lot of hands-on, there's demonstrations, there's field trips, there's a lot of really interesting topics. But I would say one of the most impactful activities that we are able to do as part of the Citizen Academy is to go on a ride-along with an officer. It's very eye-opening, it's very important. I think you just learn so much by spending a shift with them, going out and seeing what they see in the city, what happens in our city that a lot of us may not see. So that we feel that is a really key component So these are the topics. Oh, yes, ma'am.
No,
Oh.
you're just moving away from the microphone.
Okay,
And the
sorry.
people that are watching aren't going to be able to hear it, and
Okay.
you want them to hear you.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. So these are the topics that are typically, and there's more, I don't have everything here, but these are topics that are covered in there. And there's newer things that have been put in place over recent years, social workers, there's a great crisis intervention training and that many people go through to really have be effective as they're dealing with some difficult situations. So these are the different topics, as well as, like I said, there's others as well that are covered. So this kind of brings me to our Alumni Association. And there were many of us who, after going through the Citizen Academy, really felt we want to learn more, we want to stay involved, we want to find a way to support the police department, but also, help in the community, help reach out to others in the community to really, what are some ways that we all can work together and try to address some of the issues in the city. So some of the things that we do, you'll see the 3 things listed here. We do a lot of volunteer work with the Kansas City Police Department at different events or programs. We're out at the patrol divisions on like the trunk or treats or the ham giveaways or just some of the movie nights, things like that, that the different patrol divisions do. We try to be there to volunteer in any way that we can. We want to give back. We want to interact with people in the community that the police department interact with as well. We also donate some items to support the KCPD, as well as some of the programs. Some of them are little things. We're a smaller group. We don't have a humongous budget, but some of the things we've been able to do, we had a very significant donation of kits to the crime lab that another organization was able to work with us to provide those. We had a fundraiser to provide Narcan for the canine officers, the dogs, but also the officers too can use it if needed. And then we've done even a simple thing like we had a Joy Marie Chamberlain who also got motivated on, we heard officers didn't have snow brushes in their cars. So let's just see what we can do. And we got a bunch of them. So every car this winter should have a snow brush in it. So it's just simple things like that we thought, if there's some way we can help, we want to do that. We really enjoy what we're doing. We want to continue to learn, and we want to just in some way give back and participate in the community events. And that final item you see there, and that's mostly what I'd like to talk about, is encouraging participation in the Citizen Police Academy. Like I said, this is a great program. We loved it. People love it when they go through it. And we want to see more people go through it. We think it's a really great program. And really, Citizen Police Academies are intended to really improve some of the understanding, the communication, and participation, cooperation between police departments, community groups, and so forth. So one of the things we would like to have as many people as possible attend this. And so we do try to reach out at some of the events that we participate in to let them know about the program. We've also met with I would say almost all of the officers, just to let them know. Some of them are very aware and some of them participate as presenters, but we want to make sure that they understand the program, and people that they may meet who might be interested in this are aware of it as well. So our group was formed in 2018. Like I said, we're small, we're growing, hopefully. We don't have a huge budget to do things, but we try to do as many things as we can to help in some way. So that kind of brings us to our proposal. Like I said, we want to encourage as many people to attend the Citizen Academy as possible. And as we were thinking about that, there's been a lot of, city leader, there's been people from different civic groups, faith groups, just residents of the city. that have attended this. And we just thought, it'd be really great if our city council members would go through this and really learn about this. And, I think it's one way if we can try to get the police department and the city council cooperating and just really trying to understand each other and work together. I, as a resident of the city, I really want to see that of my city council and my police department. Like I said earlier, no one group can do this on their own. And I think with that cooperation and just active involvement, I think it's a starting point. It's not going to solve everything, but it is a starting point. So we are proposing that they offer a citizen police academy for city leaders and that all city council members would attend and participate in that. So we saw these as some of the potential topics. Now, this would be a modified version of the regular Citizen Police Academy, probably not as long, but we want to hit on the key topics as well as, make it beneficial, make it an interactive program for everybody. These are some of the things that we just are really great topics, impactful. Learning about what the crime in the city, but also what's being done about it, what could be done about it to help address that. A virtual simulation, I know that's something people may not be familiar with, but that's a really cool interactive video tool where you're actually in the position of an officer dealing with different situations. So it's a really cool, we all love going through that. But then learning about some of the other things, the social workers, talking with them, what are they facing, what do they do, how beneficial they have been. Traffic stops, scenarios, we really want it to be interactive. We'd love to see, really active participation. And finally, the Crime Stoppers program is one I'm sure most people know about, but it really encouraging people, it's as a safe way. It's not the police department that the tips come into. It's a separate organization, and the anonymity of that, we really want to encourage people to do that. Plus, you can get some awards that in some cases can be very nice. So these are some of the topics that we would suggest. However, this is something that could be, modified, whatever we feel is, a beneficial program. We'd need to look also what the format of this type of program would be. The regular Citizen Academy is 11 weeks, one night a week. We know that kind of thing may be difficult for City Council if we could get them through that. So we could look at what kind of format would be most accommodating for everyone involved. So our next steps, this proposal, and you all have a PowerPoint of this, but we have more of a written proposal as well that we're happy to have emailed to everyone. But this, one of the things we would like to, with the mayor's blessing, to bring this to the City Council, get them aware of this, but also, their agreement to participate in this. Like I said, I think it's an awesome program. We really believe in it. I know the police department likes doing this and likes meeting people from the community and really appreciate their time in coming to this. So hopefully we can get that to the City Council, and then with agreement and approval, I'm being positive here, determine what the format might be and the content of what the Academy would look like. And then you see I'm very positive, step 3, we get started on that. I'd love to see something like this in place in the first part of the year, first half of the year, ideally. But we know there have been some efforts at this in the past, and we just feel like we wanted to put this forward. We really believe in it. We really believe this is a way to start working together more actively, cooperating to try to address some of these. I think, like I said, our goal is to have a safe community, and I think this is one way to get started on that. It's like it's not going to solve everything, but I think it's one way that can be very helpful. So that is concludes my presentation here. Again, I am presenting this on behalf of our Citizen Police Academy Alumni Association. And our email addresses are up here, mine and Richard Palmer's. We're happy to answer if you have any questions now, but otherwise feel free to email us. Like I said, you have our presentation, but also we have a written proposal that we can send as well.
Thank you.
So I'm going to thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come talk with you and just explain who we are and what we'd like to see happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It is definitely, public safety is a shared responsibility.
Yep.
And so with all of the programs that we're hearing about and promoting, our city is going to get better. Thank you.
And we would encourage you guys to attend too. Just throw that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to make one quick comment on that. I did a ride along when I was a youth, and I still remember to this day, we went to an accident scene and I thought, oh, this is great. We're going down the road at 100 miles an hour, sirens and everything. Got there and it was 2 head-ons and it was huge cars like the old Cadillacs back in the 80s. And the firemen came and they had to cut out one of the gals, and she ended up dying the next day. But just being able to see that, I still have that visual because they had her on the stretcher. They had to cut off her clothes in front of everybody. People were gawking around. It was hard for the paramedics to get in and work on her. And I always wear my seatbelt because of that. And it was, of course, because of alcohol was involved. And that was just a huge impression on me as a youth to make good choices. So I think it's very, very beneficial. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Crime reporting report, and that's under Deputy Chief Maidman. And what tab are you under?
C. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
In addition to the information under tab C, you should have a hard copy of the daily homicide analysis report, the blue sheet, in front of you. If you've been watching the news recently, you'll be aware that we've had an uptick in homicides over the last several weeks. But even so, we've had a significantly fewer number of homicides year to date than we have last year. To date, there have been 149 homicides in 2021 compared to 174 in 2020 at the same time. This is a 14% decrease year to date. The 5-year average of homicides year to date is 143. We're currently up 4% compared to the 5-year average. If you look at your sheet, you'll see that we have cleared 90 homicides year to date. This number includes homicides that occurred in 2021 and homicides that occurred in previous years. You should also have a paper copy of the non-fatal shooting comparison report in front of you. You'll note that from January 1 through December 13th, 2021, there were 486 non-fatal shooting victims in Kansas City. In 2020, we had 609 non-fatal shooting victims during the same period. So we're down 20% compared to last year. In November 2021, we had 32 non-fatal shooting victims compared to 46 in November of the previous year. This is a 30% decrease for the month.
Excuse me, what do you credit to the decrease?
It's hard to tell, but I would like to say probably the cooperation that we're getting between us, our federal partners, the city, the prosecutor's office, all working together on some of our violent felons.
And the community is helping too?
Absolutely. And with our community programs that we're working in, I think it's a multifaceted approach. It's hard to just pick one item.
It is all mostly East Patrol, the reduction in homicides.
I'd have to look. Yep, that's correct. That is a big factor. Again, tab C, if you want to go to tab C, on page 2, you'll see the November 2021 non-fatal shooting report. It shows that of the 32 non-fatal shooting victims in November, 18 were initially cooperative with detectives. However, 14 or 44% were uncooperative and did not wish to press charges against whoever shot them. Black males accounted for the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims with 21, which is 66% of the total number. The second highest number of non-fatal shooting victims were white males with 7, and there were also 4 black female victims. The age group with the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims was 18 to 24, with 10 victims, or 32% of the total. The 25 to 34 age group was second with 8 victims, or 26%. The 35 to 44 age group was third with 6 victims. The 17 and under age group was next with 5 victims. And finally, there were 2 victims in the 45 and over age group. There were 7 known suspects involved in the shootings. 3 of the suspects were described as black females, 2 suspects were described as black males, and 2 were described as white males. Of these 7 known suspects, 3 were in the 17 and under age group, 2 were between the ages of 18 and 24, and another 2 were between 25 and 34. On page 5, you'll see the recovered firearms report. The department recovered 173 firearms in November of 2021 compared to 203 in November of 2020. The average number of firearms recovered in the month of November is 186. And from January 1 through November 30th, 2021, we've recovered 2,228 firearms. There's no questions regarding firearms-related offenses. Captain Sean Hutchinson of the Property Crimes Division will have a brief
quick
presentation.
question, Deputy
Yes, sir.
Chief, on firearms. At this point, on what basis are we recovering most of our firearms? Is it felons in possession, searches incident to a lawful arrest through some other means? How do we typically seize them?
It could vary across the board. I don't have it broken down by specific categories that we've recovered in, but we do for arrests, for safekeeping if someone turns them in. Like you mentioned, if they're involved in a crime, then they're held for evidence. So it's that number goes into all of those categories.
I never want to pretend to put you in a policy-making position because you're not. However, I am sometimes. And so there are some substantial discussions in the Missouri legislature about certain gun-related laws and regulations and their impact on law enforcement in Missouri. And this department hasn't necessarily spoken on it, but others in more rural parts of our state have. I think my question's going at, have we seen an increased challenge in retrieving firearms from those who might be typical bad actors relating to that? And I don't, perhaps the answer is you can't answer that for me, but that's in some ways what I'm looking to understand.
I will say that it is difficult for us to remove firearms from people that we know to be, as you mentioned, bad actors, unless we have a specific charge to take them for. It was easier back in the day when we had our concealed carry laws were different. But right now, it is true. A lot of times we'll have to hand the guns right back if we don't have a specific offense that we can take them for right now.
Thank you.
Ready, Hutch?
Well, this is the perfect segue into this presentation. So one of the drivers of our violence in the city is easy access to guns. And since the early 2000s, a lot of our gun laws in the state of Missouri have been relaxed. And so people are more likely to be carrying guns, and especially in their vehicles. So one of the things that we like to track and take a look at are thefts of guns stolen from vehicles. Interestingly, Missouri is one of 39 states that does not mandate reporting of a gun that's stolen. A lot of states have mandatory reporting, and there are punishments and fines if you do not report your gun stolen within a certain set amount of time. So in 2020, we had 498 firearms stolen from vehicles from January 1st to November 30th. So far in 2021, we've seen a 19% increase. We've had 613 guns stolen from vehicles in the city. That's an average of almost 2 guns per day stolen from a vehicle put out on the street. And these are the ones that are reported. These aren't the ones that are not reported. By far and large, Center Zone has the most number of guns stolen from vehicles. In 2020, Center Zone accounted for 32% of all guns stolen in Kansas City. And this year that's gone up to 42%. And in just thefts from auto in general, Center Zone also leads the way. The percentages hold the same. We've had to date 4,400 thefts from auto, and over 1,700 of those were in Center Zone. 37% of the guns stolen in Center Zone were stolen in Westport Entertainment District. When we took a look at hotspots citywide, of course, Center Zone was the epicenter of guns stolen in Kansas City. And looking within Center Zone, we found that the entertainment districts, Westport, Power and Light, Crossroads, and 18th and Vine, were the hotspots. These are where the majority of guns are stolen in Kansas City from vehicles. And this map, it's a little bit difficult to see, but if you look at it, it's the hotspots really stand out as far as where the guns are stolen, and in particular Westport. Like I say, Westport accounts for by far the most guns stolen in Kansas City. In Westport this year, we've had 96 guns stolen from vehicles. In all of the East Patrol Division, we've had 98. And that includes Arrowhead Stadium, Royal Stadium. So it is a huge factor.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yep.
So to report a stolen gun, you know, a lot of times when people have a fender bender accident, they say go to the station and report it. Is it the same for a stolen gun?
No, if it's a stolen gun, we'll go out, we'll try and process the scene. We'll look for video, we'll look for evidence. We'll go a little bit further when it involves the theft of a firearm. And all thefts of firearms, we follow up on them as soon as we get the report. We've got a sergeant looking at that report, assigns it to a detective. We're looking for things like that because we know it's a problem and we know what these guns are being used for.
Are we also trying to have more people watching where people park in Westport or wherever these are stolen?
Yes, ma'am, and we'll get to
sorry.
that on down the road. So here's the Westport hotspot. Here's Power and Light hotspot, Crossroads, and 18th and Vine. Tracking gun thefts by month. In May, we started to see a large uptick. In June, we had an even bigger uptick, and in Center Zone, and this shows citywide in yellow and just Central Patrol in red. Our gun thefts doubled in June in Central Patrol Division. We know that these guns are being used in crimes. And one gun in particular that was stolen from the 18th and Vine district turned up at a homicide scene in Raymore, Missouri in July. So for enforcement efforts, the Property Crimes Division has partnered with the Patrol Division, and we've conducted several joint overt and covert undercover surveillance operations. We've particularly targeted the entertainment districts and any venue that has large crowds. And what we did, and I think it was in June, we put out a media blast to say, hey, we're having a problem with guns being stolen from vehicles, guns to Westport and Power and Light and them in your vehicle. Because these guns, when we have these break-ins, we have video, one person will just go and just pop windows. And the guy right behind him is going, opening the door, checking the seat, the glove box. That's it. These guns are unsecured in these vehicles. So we put a blast out to the media to say, hey, don't take your guns to town. And if you do, lock them up. So far, we've arrested several people. We've got 2 people that are pending charges at the state level for felon in possession, possession of stolen property. We've got 1 juvenile that's awaiting charges at JJC. And so far, we have 4 people that are in federal custody, looking at several federal charges for felon in possession, possession of stolen property, conspiracy. And these 4 parties were operating in 2 different groups. And we know that one group was responsible for at least 20 firearm thefts from Westport that we can tie them to. So, interestingly, and I had to look at this data several times, in all of 2021 at Arrowhead Stadium, when you think that tens of thousands of cars park at Arrowhead Stadium for Royals games and Chiefs games, we've only had 9 guns stolen from Arrowhead Stadium. And I know that Arrowhead Stadium, they have a lot of, it's gated. You have to drive through a gate to get into the parking lots. And I know that they have a lot of security personnel that roam the parking lots, and they have lots of good cameras. And so I think that's a benefit. The entertainment districts, they have some on-duty and off-duty and private officers that patrol the lots. But most of the parking around the entertainment venues are private lots and not city parking. St. Louis is having a very similar issue to this, where they're downtown in their stadiums. They're having a large issue of theft from auto where guns are taken. I know that they are introducing legislation to try to partner private lot owners with the police to see if there's something that can be done to get them to work together to try to lower the number of thefts from that. We'll be reaching out to St. Louis. I know other cities just to see, is there something legislative that we can do to help with this problem? We're going to continue the increased activity around the entertainment districts. We know it's a problem. We're going to keep being out there. And after the meeting today, we're going to get with the media unit to try and put another blast out to say, hey, we're still having this problem. Don't leave your guns in the car. So, are there any questions?
I'll speak to this. And Captain, I appreciate your presentation. This is probably one of our greatest challenges in the city by far. And I'll just appreciate what you just said. And please just don't leave your guns in the car. For a lot of people who perhaps don't go out for a night to be bad actors, but they commonly carry their firearms before going to the club for any number of reasons. It's exceedingly unhelpful for our community, and it's leading to violent crimes in Kansas City and points beyond. A few other policy points that we should think of. And again, you're not a policy guy, and I won't force this on you, but I would recommend this for city council, and we've thought about it over time. Staggered closing times at more establishments in Westport. Having everybody feed out at 3 a.m. I think helps contribute to some of the criminal activity, the lawlessness that we see there over time. And I know that's taking money out of some people's pockets, but it takes a lot of money out of people's pockets if half the region's scared to go down there on a Friday or Saturday night. I think another thing that we need to do once and for all, this would be the city working with Westport and other entertainment districts. Actually, Chief and I have talked about this before. Requirements as it relates to lighting in certain areas where you have consistent activities. That's a challenge in the Westport area at 18th and Vine. Parking lots a little bit away from the Power and Light District. I mean, there are things that can be done. It will just cost money. It will require us to look a little differently. And all those are things that we can do without recourse to the Missouri legislature and battles about the Second Amendment or anything like that, which are much harder to have. For now, I thank you for your collaboration with everyone. And I would ask you to make sure you keep the board apprised of the cooperation that you're getting from different business and entertainment districts. I'm not casting aspersions on anyone. Sometimes they're easy to work with. Other times, maybe it's a little different. But let us know, particularly since we license security guards, particularly armed ones. we would be interested in knowing who's working with us to help address this problem long-term, and perhaps who we might want to lean on to get more cooperation. But thank you.
Yeah, and it's going to be really important for us to work with Westport. Just the numbers of guns that are stolen in that small geographical area is staggering.
Have you, if I may ask, ever since we privatized the sidewalk circa 2018 to set up that metal detector system they have you seen more or less firearms? Has it had any effect? The barricades they create, I think, in the summer months?
I think it's created that people know they're not carrying guns on their person. They're leaving them in the cars. And so they know you can't get into Westport with a gun. The problem is people are bringing their guns with them to Westport in the first place. And it's not just, you say, oh, bad act. It's everybody's bringing a gun to Westport. And that's an issue. So.
And that was one of the things that was reported to us, I don't remember when, that people go to the metal detector, they say, you've got a gun, I'll go put it in my car. And then, of course, there are people watching.
Yeah.
He just put his gun in his car, and as soon as he's gone, they're in the car getting the gun. I mean.
Yes, and they're hitting, 20, 30 cars at a time. They're not looking for anything but guns, and they're in and out so quick. And a lot of these lights, like you said, Mayor, the lighting's not the best, the video's not the best. We have to find a way that we can work with the private lots. We help each other on this problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now discuss case submissions to county prosecutors' offices. During the month of November, KCPD submitted a total of 246 cases to county prosecutors' offices, 208 to Jackson County, 29 to Clay County, 9 to Platte County, and 0 to Cass County. Charges were filed in 115 cases during the month. 38 cases were charged in custody, and 79 warrants were issued. 24 cases were returned for additional work, and 107 cases were declined during the month. From January 1 through November 30th, 2020, we submitted 4,166 cases to state prosecutors' offices. This year, we submitted 4,060 cases during the same time period. That's a 3% decrease. Last year, we were able to obtain charges in 1,940 cases during that time period. This year, we obtained charges in 1,679 cases. And that is a 13% decrease compared to 2020. This decrease is due to us refocusing some of our resources previously devoted to street-level narcotics offenses to combat violent crime. Also, a reduction in staffing, and the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office revising their drug prosecution guidelines. Those three things have contributed to that decrease. And subject to your question, that concludes my report.
Any questions?
One question. If you look, and I've been looking at this, since you've been doing these reports this year, the percentage of cases, even leaving aside the drug declinations by the Jackson County prosecutor, the overall, if you look at violent crimes, for example, their rate of cases decline is much higher than any of the other counties. To what do you attribute that?
I'd hate to speculate without doing a deep dive into it. So I don't want to give false information on that or speculate, but it is something that we look at. It varies month to month. It is higher, but it's not dramatically higher when you look over a year's time period, but it is a little bit higher.
All right, thank you. So,
I will I'll say this, and prosecutor doesn't need me to put words in her mouth or speak for her. You do run into a slightly different jury pool reality in Jackson County as well on drug charges. Almost every assistant prosecutor with whom I've spoken has noted, particularly the lighter the drug offense, the more likely you are getting jury nullification of some of those charges. say what you will about the politics of it all and all of that, but there is something to decisions being fueled by what is actually happening from juries as well. And that might just be one thought I might attribute to at least some of what's occurring for us.
Well, I was looking at the violent crimes submissions, not leaving aside all the drug declinations.
As I
No
understand,
verdicts.
as I understand it, part of his answer related to the drug definition policy change. There were 3 points that were noted, right? We talked drug policy and a change. We talked about, I think, 2 others, right?
That was for overall case submissions, but specifically with violent crime. You remember, it's probably 5 months ago now, we had a deep dive going back a year where we compared all the different counties and their outcomes. And the violent crime charging rate was a little bit less for Jackson County, but it wasn't significant when we look back over the whole year. Interestingly enough, if you looked at the declinations for violent crimes, typically it's DV. Sometimes they're juvenile-related offenses to one where it's more difficult. You know, you have your forensic interviews, and sometimes you just don't get enough information for the prosecutor to charge. And then you have cooperation issues with DV cases sometimes.
Domestic violence, is that what you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
So those are some of the hurdles that the prosecutor office, I'm sure, would cite when they say why they decline some of those violent crime cases.
All right, so we're moving into community outreach.
Yes, commissioners, that would be myself. Good morning. The first slideshow presentation we're going to have is from Brooke McQuiller, and she is our Center Patrol Social Services Specialist, and she wants to share some information with you today.
Good morning. I have no presentation or PowerPoint, I should say, just a quick little presentation. KCPD Social Services is often asked to obtain an item or items for individuals and their families who are in need. These referrals usually come from patrol officers who are sent and responded to a home or a situation and have noticed a need. A couple examples. I was doing follow-ups with officers when we came in contact with a mother who was a mother of 2 going through a domestic violence situation. We noticed there was no furniture in her living room. We asked her if she'd be interested. So I contacted a local thrift store who will let officers and I pick out furniture for their family. So we were able to deliver a full-sized couch and a coffee table. Central and Metro Patrol officers and their families assisted the children of a domestic violence victim, obtained and provided a twin bed, bunk beds, new sheets and comforters, and several toys for the children who were placed with their grandmother after their mother had died. I was out on patrol when the crew I was riding with got dispatched to the Greyhound bus station on a check the welfare. Call notes stated wanting to speak with officers to see if there was anything they could do to help him get a pair of pants. The individual was from out of town and waiting for his connecting bus. He had just separated from his wife, who was a severe hoarder, and the living conditions in his house were unbearable. He was living with COPD and had nothing on him but the clothes on his back, which happened to be a little dirty. He called to see if officers could help him find him new pants because he felt like people could smell him on the bus. At 8:30 p.m., community partner agencies are likely to be closed. And oftentimes than not, in situations like these, officers are using money out of their own pockets to pay for items like this. Luckily, I was in the car, and our program has a clothing closet strictly from donations that we use to maintain and keep up with it. Our program, since I was in the car, officers and I went to the clothing closet, picked out clothes, and delivered them back to where he was able to continue his travels. Our team can find just about anything we are asked to look for, including items such as dog kennels, microwaves, beds, couches, cat carriers, school uniforms, work uniforms, and a lot more. Christmas is another example of times when our team works closely with our CIOs and the FOP Lodge to ensure Kansas City children have the Christmas they deserve. Several agencies in the metro have Christmas assistance programs, but sometimes those have zip code restrictions and deadlines to where they have to sign up for. And sometimes they're not able to use those. So KCPD is able to help in those situations. We utilize donations from groups for people in the community, as well as toys collected in the Crama Cruiser events that we hold to ensure we can help provide parents or caretakers gifts for their children, which we should have pictures next month of those events. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
So Brooke, you work out of Central Patrol?
Yes, sorry. I talk really fast, so that's probably.
How often do all of the social workers get together from each division?
A lot of times. If we need a need, or if we have a need and we don't have it on hand, we just send a group text, say, hey, any connections you guys have. So we're oftentimes working together to problem solve, basically.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Commissioners, my items are located under tab E while we get the PowerPoint set up. There is the traffic summary in there and then our response times. A few things just to note on that. Our response times are trending up. Our goal for priority 10 calls, priority 1 calls is 7.5 minutes. Our response time on those is currently 7.58. And then our goal for a priority 20 is 9 minutes, and we're currently at 9.33 minutes. So they are trending up just a little bit. And this is my PowerPoint presentation for the month of December. The first slide is the awards for valor. And these officers, without hesitation, entered a residence during an active gunfire to save children from an armed violent suspect. Once inside, they continued to receive gunfire and were able to rescue the children without harm. So we were very proud for them for receiving that award. This is the Taiwan On for Safety. This is our MAD event, especially during this time of year, where we do see a lot of increased driving under the influence. We want to make sure that everyone gets through these holidays happy and safe. And going to what Commissioner Kramer was saying about not wearing seatbelts, we have just in this year, 66% of the people that were killed in fatality accidents were not wearing their seatbelts, or 48 people. So 48 people who died this year in fatality accidents were not wearing their seatbelts. So I do encourage everyone to please wear your seatbelts. This is Sergeant Torrance Renty. He received a Chief's coin for his work in the Police Athletic League. These are 2 of our new lateral police officers, so we're very proud of them. They are currently out in the field in an FTO with an FTO, learning about Kansas City and our rules and laws here. This is a Thanksgiving meal giveaway. Very happy. Our community interaction officer, Marquez, he's from our Metro Patrol Division, and they helped give away meals at Thanksgiving. This is a plaza lighting ceremony. This is a great tradition been going on in Kansas City. It does take a lot of members from Kansas City that night. We don't spend Thanksgiving a lot of times with our families. Instead, we're out patrolling the streets and helping and make sure the celebration goes off without a hitch, as it did. So we're very glad to have this tradition back. Cops and Kids. This is just one of the events held at Target where over 150 children were able to shop with an officer and get toys. And the next slide also shows some more pictures there of the different officers participating and the kids and the smiles on their faces. Crama Cruiser. This is a couple weeks ago. This is the Target at Ward Parkway, and that cruiser was stuffed, packed, And it was just great to see the generous donation of our citizens as they did come and bring toys. This is the presidential visit on December 9th. Again, this takes a lot of police resources to get the president, make sure he's here, has a safe trip in Kansas City. And this was at the very end where the president was loaded back onto the plane and getting ready to take off. And as you can tell, those are some of our motorcycle officers there that took part in it. And then this is at the end. It's our commander in the middle, Captain Young, who is there with the presidential limousines that the president rode in, and just seeing some pictures of them. And it was really a long day for them without any breaks for lunch or anything. So we really appreciate them. A couple events coming up. This next one is this Thursday. This will be at 241 Linwood. It's a holiday gift drive happening at our CPD division. And the next event is Saturday, December 18th. This is our giveaway at East Patrol. There's over 300 turkeys and the trimmings and light refreshments, Starbucks coffee. So we've partnered with Harvesters and Cranby's Market and Starbucks for this event. And just a couple other events. The Target Heroes and Helpers event is this Wednesday at the Liberty Target at 1. We have 2 Harvesters Foods distribution events happening on Saturday. One is at Harmony Vineyard up north, and the other one is at Colonial Presbyterian South Kansas City campus at their high school building. And then we have a Santa meet and greet on Wednesday, December 22nd at 1330 East Linwood. And that's when we'll distribute a lot of the toys and stuff that we've been given from the donations. If you have any questions about any of those events?
Just a very brief comment, if I may. Captain Young did an outstanding job, and as is to be noted, it wasn't just one day. It was basically from the moment we learned about it. I know Chief Smith, our entire department, were getting ready for the visit for a matter of probably 4 to 5 days, if not longer. So I thank them for that. Personally thank them for the Mayor's Christmas tree, another event that went off without a hitch. Tens of thousands of Kansas Cityans in Crown Center got to celebrate safely. And then I will also note, and I will yell at them for not telling you about this one. I stopped by an event that was in our largely an outreach to our Hispanic community on the west side. Our Latino officers got together with young people, coaches, and others, talking about what it's like to be a police officer, what it's like to be a Latino officer, opportunities, the department, more than anything, mentoring. It was a outstanding program. It was covered in the KC Hispanic News, I believe, and I appreciated that level of outreach, largely the west side of Kansas City and the Northeast. And so thank you to your folks for that as well.
Thank you. And now we have Brad Lemon. We're going to have him present. We have a video to show about just the partnership with Lodge 99 and everything they do to make really Christmas special for so many children within our city.
Good morning. Appreciate the time, talk about our Cops and Kids program and then the other programs that we do during the year, or at least during this part of the year. This is our, I think, 10th or 12th year of Cops and Kids, where we take care of children and meet them at Target and shop with them. A lot of communities call that shop with a cop, but that's a trademark issue. And this guy's been across the country, has been suing police departments for doing shop and cop. He has nothing to do with the police department. So ours is coined as Cops and Kids. This year is over 150. As usual, David Kenner always supports at least a child or two, which is always very nice of him. We meet with kids from all over the community. This year, we partnered with Center School District. And teachers gave children that were in severe need. A couple different churches in Kansas City. Also, again, we've had great relationships with over the years. Pretty happy to continue those relationships. So we also worked with the Westside Can Center. They brought 20 children to help. So those were always important. Our social workers always come up with families that they run into every year that need help. So we're pretty proud of that. We also have a program outside of that. Most people don't know I'm a foster child, so I've always had a special soft spot in my heart for foster kids. So we started our own foster care program that we help partner with a group that we do provide gifts for foster kids every year. This year, we started working with Rosebrooks too. So we also are supporting the children at Rosebrooks that are in a situation where they're living outside their homes in domestic violence situations. So we've worked pretty hard. I can't count how many kids we actually take care of with all the programs together. We have partnered with McDonald's, other groups over the years that have helped us do this. So again, we're real proud of this, and we continue to grow it every single year and create different partnerships and look for different needs. And unfortunately, it seems like there's always more needs than we have resources. But that's what we do, and we're going to continue to do that. We spend an incredible amount of time. My staff is I'm blessed to have an incredible staff that our lodge looks like heck. Starting about November 15th until about January 15th, there's presents and stuff stored everywhere, and they've worked really hard, and I'm really blessed to have a group of people working for us that care about this as much as I do. So I'll play a little video that was made. If I can figure out how to do this. It's not a touch screen. Yeah, that's money.
Children are very excited because of the Cops and Kids program. Some of our children are underprivileged children and may not get anything for Christmas. So this is some way of saying to you, to the children, we love you. We appreciate you. We support you. We want you to make it also. When we go throughout the store, we'll see these police officers that is walking with these children. This will help the police department to develop a greater closeness with the community by working with the children.
This is our annual FOP Cops with Kids. This is our biggest event I think that we've ever had. And we get to spend some time tonight and a couple other nights and just meet up with children and put smiles on their faces. And if you're looking around and looking at the officers, smiles on our officers' faces also.
It allows our children, our youth to see that cops are human too. They're our friends. They're there to protect us. And they start to form these relationships as they're shopping. They're finding out that the police officers have children. They have wives, they have family. And so this has been a great experience for the children. And we really appreciate the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department for doing this and trying to bond with our families.
Any questions for us?
You are doing great work. Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir.
So, Brad, I have a question, and thank you for the work that you do. I think that's so important in the community. Is there any way we can hear from some of our officers sometime on maybe how we can make them feel more supported? Because I know that was one of the things that got brought up with City Council as they were asking us about our officers and making them feel more supported. And we never really get to hear from them.
Ma'am, I think maybe the best way is just to take a Tuesday or a Wednesday and show up at division station and sit through some roll calls. I mean, that it's fine standing up here and understanding that, but it's those are the days when they're probably going to be at their most vulnerable and willing to talk. Or showing up to a lodge event and just hanging out. What we do. We're going to be feeding officers every month now. I think it's one day a week at one lodge or at one station or another. Come and help, feed them or just hang out and talk with them. Those are kind of great events where you can spend some time where they're eating hamburgers and hot dogs and having a Coke, that you can kind of have those conversations with them. At the end of the day, I think the conversation that we have to have is, and I think you're getting to, making people feel supported so they won't leave, right? So they'll quit leaving this police department at the rate of speed they're leaving. And I think there's I'm really impressed with the conversation that the Board of Police Commissioners had with command staff head and with the city council head last week. I think that went a long way. I heard a lot of really positive conversations about those. And that is, that's, when young men and women are deciding where they're going to stay for the rest of their lives and how are they going to take care of their families, they're no different than the rest of us. They have to weigh, feeding their family versus, loving where they are. And a lot of us have taken jobs where, you understand you're going to make less money, but be happy where you are. Well, the last little while hasn't been the same. And I think we're going to have to fix some of that. But the relationships like you're hearing today from the command staff and all the work that this department does every single day in the community, the stuff that we do in the community, I think that has got to be talked about more. There's no doubt that there are relationships we have to build, we have to work on. But I think we're doing a pretty incredible job with this department, and I'm proud of the work that we do. And the social worker aspect of it that was brought on by the chief, I think has been. I just sit back there in awe of what they do every time I sit and watch this. So I'm pretty impressed.
Well, thank you, and great work, and thanks to all our officers for all the hard work that they're doing in supporting our community. Thank you, and I will be at roll call. Thanks.
Brad, if you would get Bethany a list of those events where you're eating, I'm sure some of us would love to attend.
Awesome. And it's free too, by the way.
So Sergeant, I'm just impressed. You said we're welcome at the lodge anytime.
Yeah.
We may call you on that someday. Look out.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. He does. They put in a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of volunteer hours go in with Lodge 99 with that, and we really appreciate all the hard work. The next presentation is from Captain Gregory Williams, and he is in charge of our helicopter unit. So he has a presentation for you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Greg Williams. Currently, I'm assigned to patrol support. I'm in charge of K9 bomb and arson, and of course, the helicopter.
I'm afraid we're not going to be able to hear you.
Let me do this. How's that? Is that a little better?
A little. I think it needs to be up higher.
I'll speak a little louder.
Thank
Is
you.
that good? So during my presentation, I have a lot of videos. I'll talk during those to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. I think that's a little bit better for, this is a visual of what the pilots in the TFO see, the tactical flight officer. Oh, let me go back a second. I'm sorry. So currently we have 3 2012 MD-500 helicopters for our fleet. They were purchased with public safety sales tax money and grant money. We fly about 2 hours per tank of gas during our patrols. They're all equipped with forward-looking infrareds. That's kind of the nighttime thermals and a color camera. As you can see, the co-pilot, the TFO, is currently, they're on a call. They're actually looking at something. So it's kind of what they do. This is kind of their view. It's as close as possible as you can kind of get to it. So it's interesting to see that. We have recording capabilities. We record all our calls involving criminal activity or anything like that. And we have 2 persons for all police functions. As you can see here, here's nighttime, kind of what it looks like. When we're fully staffed, we have a total of 8 members, 2 sergeants and 6 officers. They split up in 2 shifts, 2 8-hour shifts. We work 7 days a week. Currently, because of staffing, we're at 6, 2 sergeants and 4 officers. We are doing 1 10-hour shift a day. Now, we do come in early, we stay late, so we are working overtime to fulfill the needs of the department. We do a lot of surveillances and things, or even in the evenings, it goes late calls depending on what's going on. So while we're only 10 hours, we do go over that quite a bit lately. As you can see, we work 7 days a week. On Sundays, we fly standby. What that means is we'll go up when we're called. We don't do the 2-hour flights that we normally do during the rest of the week. It's kind of a day that they try to do some cleaning on the aircraft, clean up the hangar, kind of do those administrative items on Sundays. Now, There's been some days where we will fly 8 hours the whole time, just kind of depends, but that's how we do it. Of course, our flights are subject to weather requirements and minimums depending on pilots and things that we have to legally abide by. So our core function, how we serve the community, there's a number of things. First and foremost, again, we're called Patrol Support for a reason. We do whatever we can do to help the officer on the ground fulfill their obligation. Last year to date, we've done over 1,750 area searches. We've searched for over 230 vehicles. We've done over 300 searches for parties. That includes children, missing persons, fleeing felons. You wouldn't believe how many kids that we've searched for. It seems like every week we're getting calls about lost juveniles. And I'll talk about that here, come up a little bit sooner. Another misnomer is that when we're flying, we really only respond to calls. Our officers look every day. They have phone calls from investigations, property crimes. They're also looking through the crime bulletins for anything that they can kind of work on while they're up flying around. Many times you'll have aggravated suspects in vehicles that, let's say, they're yellow or orange. Of course, those are easy to spot. Now, if you have a black sedan, maybe it has a white hood on it or a painted fender. Those are the things that they're looking for, that what they can do when they're just out looking around. So it's not that they're just up flying around and waiting. And this is an example, and I'll talk a little bit more about backstory on this. They were down at Westport area. It was about 3:30 in the morning, finishing up there. There was a DUI checkpoint. They were finishing up that and actually headed back to the unit to end their shift. The TFO had kind of just looking as they're returning back and see a group of cars. There's 2 or 3 that they didn't know if it was road rage or what, but they were driving erratically. As you can see, they kind of focused on one. This vehicle went down through downtown, started ramming cars. Again, no police behind it. As we're relaying the information, of course, we just maintain visual. And you'll see here, these videos I kind of edited down. This vehicle will stop into a residential area and it'll turn into a driveway. The driver gets out. As he gets out, you'll see that he walks towards the front of the residence, jumps a fence, and then he hides behind the fence. Now, again, there's no officers behind it. We have officers now coming into the area trying to see what's going on. And if you see him right there, he jumps and he'll hide behind that fence. Now, he's armed. We find that out later, but if you watch this, you'll see a police car pull up. It'll go past. As they get out, he will jump back over the fence, and you'll actually see the firearm discharge. As soon as he jumps, you'll see it discharge. And falls, and he takes off. So a foot pursuit ensues. We get the party in custody, but it's just one of the videos I wanted to show that we do much more than just respond to calls. They are actively looking for situations. Luckily, no one was hurt here. He was taken in custody without any problems. Another primary responsibility, we have vehicle pursuits, foot chases. Now, I know the word of the day is de-escalation. And how can the helicopter do that? If you know, car chases are some of our most important things that we do. And how we mitigate the liability for car chases is on 99% of the car chases I hear, and if you hear one today, you'll always hear if we get into a vehicle pursuit, the first thing people are saying, hey, get the helicopter up. When the helicopter gets there, let them take the pursuit. We actually have the pursuing officers disregard, back away to hopefully have the suspect slow down, and then we'll just follow them until as long as it takes for them, hopefully that we can approach them in a safe manner where no one gets hurt. And this is a good example of that. In this one, the vehicle hadn't run from the officers, but there was a high probability that it would. So officers waited for the vehicle to or for the helicopter to respond. Once the helicopter got overhead and said, okay, we have the vehicle, go ahead and try to light it up. They tried to light the vehicle up. You'll see it takes off. And then within a matter of 10 or 15 seconds, the officer turns off his emergency equipment and pulls to the side of the road and stops. So now this gives the suspects like, okay, I'm not being followed, great, slows down. And that's kind of what happened here. So if you'll see the speeds, he starts to slow down. Of course, he is going faster than the other traffic. But as you'll see, as it goes forward a little bit, as we get into residential areas, he's driving normal, obeying all traffic, things of that nature, and we're waiting for him to get stopped. We go into Independence on this one, and when we go into another city, they have their own rules. Now, Independence didn't chase this vehicle until it was stop-sticked. At that point, they got behind it, but the vehicle now is only doing between 20 and 30 miles an hour. It eventually stops, and you'll see that the suspect then gets out on foot and flees. So to let you know, we use the helicopter, like I said, in the majority of our vehicle pursuits in this type of fashion. We get the helicopter overhead, we let the helicopter take over, and then we back away, hoping that we can mitigate any liability or even property damage or damage to, we don't want anyone to get hurt. Community engagement. This is one of the community events we go to. We do about 50 a year. Last year, we saw a big decrease, of course, with COVID. Things kind of subsided. It's starting to pick up again. We've done about 20 this year. We love to share the passion of aviation with kids and, of course, law enforcement, but this is one of those. Citizens Police Academy, we hosted that at the police hangar. You can see this was just a few months ago. It's always a big hit. This I saved towards the end. I believe this is really our most valuable asset for the police helicopter. Search for individuals. Now, sometimes that's fleeing felons, but a lot of times that's for kids and elderly. Again, we don't track how many kids we do. In fact, I just learned this when I was putting this together. We're going to start doing that because just weekly, if you look at the crime summaries, there's always times where we have lost missing juveniles that we go out. Just 2 weeks ago, I received a phone call from a retired member who said, hey, the police helicopter's overhead. Can you tell me what's going on? I was like, well, let me check for you. So I checked. It turned out that they were missing a juvenile. It was a 8 and 11-year-old. So I called them back and said, yeah, this is what I can talk about. It's a missing juvenile, actually 2. And they're like, hey, can we put that on Nextdoor? Because that's where I'm getting all these hits. Everybody's asking me on Nextdoor because I was a cop. I said, absolutely, please put it on Nextdoor. If anyone sees anything suspicious or kids in the backyard, have them call. Now, it took about 20 minutes for us to locate them. We spent about 15 in the core area where the kids first went missing. As soon as we expanded that search, we found them about half a mile away. The 8-year-old wasn't wearing shoes. It was one of the evenings. It was about 36 degrees out. So as soon as they got overhead, they could tell with the FLIR, the way the child was walking, that, hey, yeah, this is probably them. So we have those success stories, and luckily it's great asset just to have for that. I mean, if you're doing 300 a year, you average 1 a day, you can see. So, last couple things to talk about today. For the budget, we requested a spare aircraft engine, approximately $400,000. Through the course of our helicopter program, when we switched to turbine engines, the overhaul times, they're done on a maintenance schedule. So it's everything on the aircraft's a maintenance schedule. Normally it's by flight hours. It could also be by calendar years or calendar months, times, things of that nature. The engines have to be overhauled on certain sections at 1,750 hours. Every 1,750 hours, they get overhauled. The first 1,750 is on the cold section. The 3,500 is on the hot section. Those used to be a 28-day turnaround. Now, over the last few times we've done it, that has increased. The last time we've done it, they told us it was going to be a 28-day turnaround. It was 9 months.
I'm sorry, but who has the engine? I mean, we're not doing this ourselves.
No. So this has to be sent back to one of a specialty repair center or facility that can do the overhauls. They're certified by the manufacturer and they're certified by the FAA to do these. So I think and that might have contributed to this, Rolls-Royce and MD, there used to be a vast by probably 10 or 15. That number's down to, I think, about 5, maybe 6. In fact, one just closed. So probably around 5 places that you can send the motor off for. Because of that, because of some supply issues, I think, with a couple of the turbines, the turbine fans, it was a 9-month wait on the last time. Now, we are getting ready to ship one back. We have 100 hours left on one, in fact, probably about 70 now. It goes back for a 1750. We've got a quote. We've done everything. We've kind of given them heads up to get all the parts they need prior. They're saying 2 months. We're going to wait and see what that happens. If it's 2 months, wonderful. I mean, compared to 9 months, but we'll know here soon what that's going to be, hopefully by early summer.
So explain about the extra one that you want.
So the extra one would allow us not to have, so when we go down, like for the last one, we went down 9 months. We do everything kind of on a rotation where we can fly, we're up, and we have an aircraft down. So currently right now, I have 1 aircraft down for maintenance. Now that was a quick thing we were trying to get done. Turns out there's 2 bolts that we need that is going to keep that aircraft down. Fiscal's going to get a call from me this afternoon trying to get those 2 bolts ordered. But we do that, so we have 1 aircraft down and then 2 that are up and flying. We have some redundancy there. And plus your maintenance, you plan that out by year. That 9 months we were down, that forced us to fly the other 2 aircraft, and it bunched everything kind of up a little bit. So we're going to have the 1750 doing now, and then we're going to have probably another one next year that we're going to have to do. But we're trying to get back on that cycle where the maintenance is nice. We have a big wall that we watch all the maintenances, because like I said, not only the engine has a time on it, then you have the rotor head, the transmissions. These aircraft are about 10 years old. They're coming up all on 5,000 hours. In fact, we just went over 5,000 hours on one of them. The transmission we just overhauled on one. Every 5,000 hours, it's a transmission overhaul. So we just did that on, I think, 690. Now, the next one will be coming due, I think, in about 12 months. And then one after that, about 12 months after that. So we try to space these out that way. So having a spare engine, too, one, it allows us to use the engine. We can put it in. It takes about 2 hours to actually, if we had a working engine, to install in the aircraft and have that aircraft up and be able to kind of keep everything moving forward and being available, which is what we want to be able to do. I want to be available anytime someone calls. We're ready to go. We're there. That makes sense. Any questions about that? Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just thinking here, I skipped a slide, so I'm going to backtrack real quickly. A couple other things that we do. Mutual aid, we actually help regionally with all other departments, law enforcement, and entities around the region. So we kind of have a motto. If we can get there on a tank of gas and back and help you, we will try our best. Now, local police departments call us much more often when they have critical incidents. They will more likely. Kansas calls a lot, especially for vehicle pursuits, area searches for kids. And that's what we see with the farther away, like Ray County. We've had a few just recently, within the last 6 months. One was an officer-involved shooting. The other 2, I believe, were missing juveniles. So out in the country, that rural area, it's really good for us to get out and be able to search with a FLIR at night. We can cover a lot of ground, a lot of distance very quickly and effectively. So surveillances, we average 2 to 3 a week, if not more. The pilots, they're getting calls every day before they come in. Normally when they get in, they're trying to pre-flight the aircraft quickly because investigations needs our help. Yesterday, we just went out with property crimes. I wish I could talk about what they were doing. I'm sure you'll hear about it here soon. It's not over yet, but it just amazes me how well they do and how they use us to kind of assist them. But again, violent crimes, at least 1 or 2 times a week, they're tracking homicide suspects between houses, trying to locate them, trying to figure out where they can kind of get them in custody without turning it into a big ordeal. So that does special events, as Colonel True mentioned earlier, the motorcade, President visited. I will tell you, they were very appreciative of the helicopter unit. They used us in some ways that of course, they wouldn't want me to talk about, but not only for us, but just the whole department. They are, I think that one of them said that top 3 in the country, this department. In fact, I think he was wanting to say top 1, but, and that's not just the helicopter unit. That is just the entire department, the services we provide and the availability, the city, everything in general. So I thought that was really important, something to pass along. But again, parades, all the special events. I'm not a huge, I know, don't get mad, I'm not a huge sports guy, but I've been told that we are getting the Super Bowl this year already. So, but you know, we're always available for that, and it makes a good resource. There's one last thing, camera systems for the aircraft. We have that in the budget this year. It's about a $2 million ask. Our cameras are 10 years old. I will play this video. We are doing a kind of a little bit of story behind this. We're doing a project for the street racers. We've all seen kind of the chaos that has ensued with them. We were working one evening. Missouri Highway Patrol had their helicopter. They came to assist us because what we're trying to do is kind of take the most prolific offenders in the group